Paper plate mandala weaving, art lesson with Ms.Boley. Weaving is a way of making cloth or fabric by passing thread or strips of fabric over and under each other. The warp are the threads that go up and down in our weaving. In this project, our warp crosses diagonally in the center of the circle. The weft are the threads that go side to side in our weaving. In this project, the weft goes round and around the circle. Why are we doing this? Well, first of all, we're wanting to experiment with weaving in different materials. Secondly, we're trying to make thoughtful choices about our weaving while we are creating it. And finally, we're learning about textiles and how art is connected to culture. These are the special materials that we'll need for this project. Scissors, yarn of various colors or other weaving materials like fabric strips, ribbon, or laces, etc. A paper plate, or you can cut a circle out of some cardboard, and a marker or pen. You need to, you can pause here to go collect the materials that you will need. Step 1 is to make the cardboard loom. So I have just used a plate and I've traced it onto a piece of cardboard. So now I need to make an odd number of little tick marks along the edge of my circle. So I am just using my eyes and I'm just estimating what would be an odd number of tick marks. So I'm just counting these as I go. And I'm aiming for around 11 or 9, or you could even do 13. So I'm just going to count and just see where I'm at, see how many I can fit, just make sure that I end up with an odd number. So you can use a ruler and try to measure them, but I found that it's actually easier to just eyeball them. So see how I've kind of moved that one over a little bit? So they're sort of evenly spaced as best as I can. You may need some learning coach support for this part. I also have a template that you can print out if you like. So now I'm just numbering my tick marks to make sure that I have an odd number. It's very important. I have 13, so I'm good to go for this. And on this little one here, I have 11. So make sure that you have an odd number. And then I will grab my scissors and I'll just make a small centimeter long cut at every tick mark, all the way around to my 13 little tick marks. So these are some types of knots that you might need to use in this project. So the first type of knot is called the overhand knot. So we're going to take our piece of yarn, we're going to make a loop. Okay. There's our loop, and we're going to take that little tail and we're just going to poke that little tail through the loop and pull. So there, that's what it will look like, and we pull it tight, and that is called an overhand knot. And you can do a second overhand knot in order to make it a little bit bigger. So we're also going to do an overhand knot, an overhand knot with two pieces of yarn together. So we're going to take both of the pieces of yarn and hold them side by side. Going to make a loop. Okay, and there's the tail with two. And then we're going to take both of those tails and just pop them right through the loop and pull. And these are tricky knots. Some of us were just learning how to tie knots, and so it's a good idea to practice some of these. All right, so we're going to start by adding our warp to the loom. So we're going to add those crisscrossing diagonal threads. So I'm going to start by doing an overhand knot at the end of a piece of thread. So I've actually pulled it through one of my little cuts on my loom. So I'm doing an overhand knot to make a little knot to hold it in place there. So now I can kind of pull. Okay, so I'm pulling it across. I'm going directly across into the tick mark directly across. Okay, and then I'm looping it around the back and across again and around the back and across again. So I'm just trying to make that diagonal X shape as best as I can and just looping to the one beside. See, looping it to the one beside there and then across. So which one should I go to? So it's, there we go. If you can just make some choices about which one to go to, looping it, okay. And then I'm finding that I don't want to loop it there. I only have one more little cut left here. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to loop it directly around to the back. Yeah, there we go. So see how it's on the back there? I'm just going to loop it up to that final cut. And then this is what I'm left with. Now I have this little long piece here. It's still attached to my ball of yarn. I'm going to just cut it now. Not too long of a piece. And then I'm going to take that little tail. See at the bottom here where I have that low V shape? I'm going to look for the lowest V shape. I'm going to lift up those threads in the center and I'm just going to pull my thread through. And this is just going to complete my crosses here. So then I can kind of pull upwards and it kind of can bring my center a little bit more into the middle. So now I'm ready to add the weft. I'm just going to start going over, under now, and I will show you how. So I have that long tail, so I'm just going to pick one of the warp threads to use. Maybe that one right there, and I'm just going to start going over, under, and then I'm going to alternate over, under. So that's going to go over, under, and then pull through. And then I'm going to continue just following that pattern, over, under, and then over, and then under. And in the middle of the circle where we're at right now, it takes a long time for you to notice the weaving. And it's also kind of tricky. I'm using the same color of warp and weft yarn, so it's actually kind of hard for you to see on the video. But eventually, after we go over, under a bunch of times and go all the way around, we're going to start to see a little bit of the weaving showing up. So let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see maybe a bit better. So that last one was going under. So I'm skipping and going over and then under and then over and then under. I'm just kind of pulling it through with my fingers and then pulling that extra yarn through. And I can lift up my cardboard as well. And then see, you can see I'm getting a little tiny bit of weaving. So let's speed up the video so we can see some progress. Alright, so you may run out of thread and you may want to change color to a different type of yarn. And you're going to grab the two ends of the yarn that you want to use and you're going to do that overhand knot that I showed before with the two pieces together. So we're going to make a loop and then tuck the two tails in, and then we can just continue on with weaving. You can cut those little tails off if you like. And I recommend not having too long of a piece of yarn. Makes it harder to pull through. But yeah, let's speed up the video again to see some more progress. How to remove your weaving from the loom. So you can leave your weaving like this on the cardboard, or you can decide to take it off from the cardboard. See that again, what I'm doing there. So I took the end of my weft thread and I got that little end piece and I'm going to do a loop, an overhand knot, and pull the tail through. And I'm going to do that overhand knot around my weft thread. So I can pull that tight. I'm going to do a second one to secure that in place because I don't want that to be able to move around. And then I'm just going to kind of hide the knot a little bit. And then I can cut off that tail if I want as well. And then see how the back of my, it has these little loops here, and it has that one like longer thread. I'm just going to pull those loops off of the cardboard. So now I'm left with these kind of little loops on it and this one like longer one that loops around the back. So I'm going to cut those. Oh, and I have this one that isn't a loop. And so I'm going to try to pair them all off, and I'm going to do a different type of knot to hold them together. So I'm going to cut right there and take that loop, and I'm crossing the threads over and putting one through the loop and pulling. We look at that again closer up. So I have the two threads from the loop that I cut, crossing them and pulling, crossing them with one tail going through the back and pulling. And once I do pulling, there we go. And when I have two knots, then I'm good to go. So I'm going to now repeat that. So cutting and then pairing them off all the way around the circle. So now I have this one random one that doesn't have a pair to tie off with. So I'm going to just pull it out a little bit so I can tie a good knot with it. And then I'm just going to do a little overhand knot by putting it through underneath one of the weft threads. So I'm just going to do a loop and pull that thread through. There we go. And I'm going to do that a second time to make sure that it's secured. And then I'm going to cut all those little tails off all around the weaving. And there's my finished weaving. And remember, you can always keep your weaving on the cardboard circle. It looks really cool that way as well. But if you wanted to take it off, that is how you can do it. And remember, some of us, this may be our first time we've ever tried weaving. It may not be perfect, but the more important part is that you try your best and you keep going even if you're getting frustrated. You can always put it away and try again later. That's it. Thanks for watching.